The Vygotskian concept of mediating activity and the educational production of needs. Elaine, Cristina, Melo, Duarte, Unicamp, Brazil. Newton, Duarte, Unes, Brazil.
Based on Hegel and Marx, Vygotsky considered the use of tools and signs as mediating activities.
Karl Marx wrote in the first volume of his work Capital, an instrument of labor is a thing, or a complex of things, which the laborer interposes between himself and the subject of his labor, and which serves as the conductor of his activity. He makes use of the mechanical, physical, and chemical properties of some substances in order to make other substances subservient to his aims. In his encyclopedia, the German philosopher Hegel wrote, "Reason is just as cunning as she is powerful. Her cunning consists principally in her mediating activity, which, by causing objects to act and react on each other in accordance with their own nature, in this way, without any direct interference in the process, carries out reason's intentions."
A typical mediating activity is the one in which human beings transform objects or phenomena into means of action. In order to do that, human beings must work with the objective characteristics of the objects in relation to the activity goals. The transformation of something into a mediation inside the activity requires the development of the mental capacity to work with indirect relations between the human needs which generates the activity and each specific component of the entire process that leads to the achievement of a good final result. In this sense, activity puts in movement, at the same time, the external reality and the psychological processes.
However, we must consider that human activity is collective in its most basic forms, and its success depends on the development of efficient processes of communication as much as on the use of powerful tools.
The use of signs and the development of systems of signs generate the complexification of interpsychical and intrapsychical functions. At this point, the retroactive effect of all this process on the motive of human actions has to be considered. On the one hand, it is true that an activity is always motivated by needs, but, on the other hand, the use and the transformation of systems of tools and signs generates historically new kinds of human needs beyond the level of subsistence.
From the dialectical perspective, this is a crucial aspect to be considered by educational projects which intend to promote the expansion of the horizons of students' life and society views. Marx wrote in economic and philosophical manuscripts that the rich human being is simultaneously a human being necessitated of a totality of exteriorization of life, a human being in whom their own realization exists as inner necessity, as need. There is a dialectical relation between human powers and human needs. Human needs require the development of human powers. However, the opposite is also true, that is to say, human necessities have been developed, transformed and created by the development of human powers. Both, the powers and the needs, exist objectively inside social relations and cultural phenomena.
The challenge of education is to reproduce this dialectical relation between powers and needs in the process of the individual's development. The possibility of intentional social production of needs is something proved every day. The most expressive contemporary demonstration of this possibility is the creation of needs by the market and the culture of consumerism. From the perspective of the historical critical pedagogy, education must develop in all learners a critical attitude towards this alienating process.
At the same time, education can create needs connected to the highest levels of human cultural production as science, arts and philosophy. This pedagogical issue can be particularly illuminated by the historical and cultural dialectic between needs and activities. The process of teaching sciences, arts and philosophy does not have to be limited to the satisfaction of the needs that learners bring with them from their everyday life. Of course, one of the tasks of education is to develop the self-awareness of these everyday needs, recognizing their origins and how they can promote or block the development of individuality. However, education can be more than this. It can generate new necessities for the learners by the process of working with school contents situated beyond the limits of everyday life. In this sense, instead of being a process of adaptation to the status quo, education would be a production of dissatisfaction with the manipulated life in the contemporary capitalist society.